First contact in the frost. The crystalline research vessel Meridian hung motionless against the backdrop of unfamiliar stars, its adaptive hull now frozen in a desperate attempt to conserve power. Inside, Chief Researcher Violin of the Nixai watched ice crystals form on the ship's internal surfaces, her bioluminescent skin pulsing weakly in the emergency lighting. The ship's 12 crew members, including her life mate and their young offspring, huddled together in the central chamber, their normally iridescent bodies dim with fear. The Meridian had been caught in an unexpected solar storm while studying an anomalous star system at the edge of mapped space. The vessel's sophisticated shielding had protected them from the radiation, but at a terrible cost. Their primary systems were completely drained, and the backup power cells were failing rapidly. The last distress signal was sent 6 hours ago, reported Navigation Officer Zarek, his crystalline appendages clicking nervously against the control panel. 3 consortium vessels have passed within range. None responded. Violin understood their reluctance. The Nixai were respected throughout the galaxy for their advanced biotechnology, but that same technology made them valuable targets for raiders and pirates. No captain would risk their ship for a potential trap, especially in this remote region. The situation had become dire. Their life support systems were operating at minimal capacity, and the temperature continued to drop. The Nixai's crystalline biology made them resistant to extreme cold, but even they had limits. Without external help, they would not survive another solar cycle. Then, through the growing frost on the view screens, they detected something unexpected. A ship approaching at sublight speed. It was unlike anything in their database, its design clearly alien to known consortium architecture. The vessel's hull was rough and utilitarian, lacking the elegant efficiency the Nixai were accustomed to seeing in spacefaring civilizations. "We're receiving a transmission," Zarek announced, surprise evident in his flickering bioluminescence. "It's primitive, using basic radio waves." The message came through in halting but understandable consortium standard. "Nixai vessel, this is Captain Elena Santos of the Earth Emergency Response Ship Horizon. We detected your distress signal. Please respond if you can hear us. Earth." Veylin's crystal matrices vibrated with recognition. The newest species to achieve faster-than-light travel, barely a century into space exploration. Their technology was considered crude by consortium standards, their methods unorthodox. Some elder races had argued against even accepting them into the galactic community. "This is Chief Researcher Violin of the Meridian," she responded, her translator struggling with the primitive communication method. "We have critical systems failure and dropping temperatures. Our young ones." She hesitated, pride warring with desperation. "Our young ones may not survive another cycle." The response was immediate and firm. "Understood, Meridian. We're launching emergency pods now. Our engineering team will help restore your power, and we have emergency heating units designed for crystalline life forms." Violin's skin pulsed with surprise. "You have equipment compatible with Nixai biology." "We study everyone, Chief Researcher," came the reply, tinged with what Violin would later learn was humor. "Humanity learned long ago that being prepared to help anyone is better than being sorry we couldn't." Through the viewport, Violin watched as several small pods detached from the human vessel, their trajectories precise despite the crude technology. The first pod docked with a solid thunk, and through the airlock came 3 figures in bulky environmental suits. Their movements were awkward compared to the fluid grace of the Nixai, but they worked with surprising efficiency. The humans moved through the ship with purpose, setting up portable heating units and connecting emergency power cells to critical systems. They showed no hesitation in touching the crystalline surfaces of the ship or interacting with the alien crew, treating the strange biology of the Nixai with professional respect rather than fear or revulsion. "The temperature should start rising now," said one of the humans, their voice distorted by their environmental suit. "We've also got medical personnel standing by if anyone needs attention. Captain Santos says we can tow you to our nearest outpost for repairs." Valin watched as her young ones began to stir, their diminished sparkle returning as warmth spread through the chamber. "Why?" she asked finally. "Why risk yourselves for an unknown ship?" The other vessels. The human paused in their work, and though Valin couldn't see their face through the reflective visor, their voice carried conviction. "Because that's what we do. On Earth, we have an ancient law of the sea. You never leave anyone in distress, no matter who they are. When we reached the stars, we decided the same rule should apply. Space is dangerous enough without abandoning each other." As feeling returned to her crystalline limbs, Valin reflected on the irony. Her people had achieved space travel when humans were still learning to make tools, yet here they were, being saved by these newcomers to the stars. Perhaps, she thought, watching the humans work alongside her crew with easy cooperation, there was more to advancement than technological sophistication. The Meridian story would spread quickly through the consortium, challenging long-held assumptions about the nature of civilization and progress. But for Valin and her crew, the most important lesson was already clear. Sometimes the most advanced technology is a helping hand, extended without question to those in need. The price of pride. Word of the Meridian's rescue spread through consortium space with unprecedented speed. The Galactic Council chambers on Station Prime buzzed with agitation as representatives from dozens of advanced civilizations gathered to discuss what many viewed as a troubling development. High Chancellor Vexthor of the Mechanoid Collective stood before the assembly, his chrome-plated form reflecting the chamber's ambient light. "This is unprecedented," he declared, his synthesized voice carrying notes of disapproval. The humans violated 17 different protocols regarding unauthorized technological intervention. Their actions, while successful, could have resulted in catastrophic consequences. Valin stood at the speaker's podium, her crystalline form now restored to its full luminescent glory. The rescue had occurred 3 standard cycles ago, but the political aftermath had only grown more intense. She noticed how the various council members reacted to her presence, some with sympathy, others with barely concealed disdain. "With respect, High Chancellor," she responded, her translator perfectly modulated. "Those same protocols prevented 3 consortium vessels from saving my crew. My offspring would have perished if not for human intervention." The chamber erupted in murmurs. An elder of the Synthelect hierarchy raised their energy form. "The protocols exist for a reason, Chief Researcher. What if the humans' primitive equipment had shattered your crystalline matrix? What if their heating units had caused a cascading resonance in your ship's biotech systems?" The potential for disaster was significant. Captain Elena Santos, invited to the chamber as a witness, listened to the debate with growing frustration. The human stood out among the assembled aliens, her simple uniform a stark contrast to their elaborate technological enhancements. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of centuries of human maritime tradition. "While we're debating protocols," she said, stepping forward, "I'd like to remind the Council that we received 37 more distress calls during this session alone. Our ships responded to each one, regardless of species or technological sophistication. We can continue this discussion, or we can focus on saving lives." The chamber fell silent. Valin observed how Santos' words affected the assembly, particularly the younger representatives, whose bioluminescence and energy patterns showed signs of thoughtful consideration. A member of the Quantum Collective, their form shifting between multiple probability states, spoke next. "The humans' methods are unorthodox, but their success rate in emergency response situations is undeniable. Perhaps," they paused, "probability patterns fluctuating. Perhaps our protocols require revaluation." High Chancellor Vexthor's mechanical features rearranged in what Valin recognized as surprise. "You suggest we lower our standards, adapt our sophisticated procedures to accommodate human improvisation." "I suggest," Valin interjected, "that sophistication without compassion is merely complexity for its own sake. The humans may lack our advanced technology, but they possess something equally valuable: the willingness to act when others hesitate." The debate continued for hours, but a shift had occurred. Violin noticed how various representatives began accessing data on human emergency response protocols, studying Earth's historical maritime rescue traditions with new interest. Captain Santos spent the time sending updates to her fleet, coordinating rescue operations across 3 sectors of space. She paid little attention to the political maneuvering around her, focused instead on the practical matter of saving lives. Later, in a quiet moment between sessions, Violin found Santos in the station's observation deck, looking out at the vast expanse of space. "Your people's actions have caused quite a stir in the consortium," she said, her crystalline form reflecting the starlight. Santos smiled slightly. "We noticed that most advanced civilizations had amazing technology for everything except helping each other. Seemed like an obvious gap to fill." "The Council believes your methods are dangerous," Violin observed. "Uncontrolled, unpredictable." "Space is dangerous," Santos replied. "Unpredictable. We learned early on that rigid protocols don't always save lives. Sometimes you need to adapt, to take calculated risks. Every rescue is different, just like every species is different." Violin's surface sparkled with understanding. "That's what truly disturbs them, isn't it? Not just your methods, but your willingness to treat all species as equally worthy of help, regardless of their technological advancement." Santos turned to face her, expression serious. "Where I come from, we have a saying. The true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members. We just extended that principle to include everyone we meet among the stars." As the council prepared to reconvene, Violin reflected on how the humans had transformed a simple rescue into a challenge to the very foundations of consortium society. The question was no longer about protocols or technology. It was about what truly made a civilization advanced. Warmth among the stars. The Horizon's Emergency Response Center hummed with activity as representatives from 12 different species crowded the observation deck. Violin watched with fascination as Captain Santos conducted what humans called a training exercise, though to the assembled aliens, it seemed more like organized chaos. "Emergency protocols aren't just about technology," Santos explained, gesturing to the holographic display showing a simulated rescue scenario. "They're about understanding each species' unique needs and adapting to unexpected situations." The Mechanoid Observer, Designation Unit 7, raised an appendage. "Your methods lack systematic optimization. Our calculations indicate a 23.4% inefficiency in your response patterns." Santos smiled, a gesture Violin had learned indicated either amusement or patience, sometimes both. "Show me a rescue that followed the textbook, and I'll show you 100 that didn't. The key isn't perfect efficiency, it's being prepared for anything." As if to prove her point, the ship's alert system activated. "Distress signal detected," announced the AI. "Mining vessel with critical reactor breach, multiple species on board. Nearest consortium response vessel is 6 hours away." The observation deck erupted in motion. Violin watched as the human crew moved with practiced precision, but what surprised her more was how Santos immediately turned to the alien observers. "Anyone here familiar with Trilaxian reactor systems?" she asked. Unit 7's photoreceptors brightened. "Affirmative. Mechanoid collective designs are superior to." "Perfect," Santos interrupted. "We could use your expertise. The rest of you, if you're willing to help, we'll pair you with our crew based on your specialties." Violin found herself working alongside a human engineer named Chen, their biological and mechanical tools creating an unlikely but effective combination. The Mechanoid's knowledge of reactor systems proved invaluable, while the quantum collective members' probability calculations helped plot the safest approach vector. As they approached the stricken vessel, Violin noticed something remarkable. The usual barriers between species, the careful diplomatic protocols, the technological hierarchies, the cultural hesitations, had vanished in the face of shared purpose. The rescue itself was challenging. The mining vessel's reactor was more unstable than initially reported, and its crew included species with vastly different environmental needs. But the improvised team adapted, combining consortium technology with human ingenuity. Unit 7, working to stabilize the reactor, made an observation that caught Valen's attention. Humans operate with significant randomness, yet achieve unexpected efficiencies. This requires adjustment to my understanding. That's because they're not trying to be perfect, Valen replied, helping a group of Trilaxian miners into an emergency pod. They're trying to be helpful. There's a difference. The operation succeeded, though not exactly according to any standard protocol. The reactor was stabilized through a combination of mechanoid expertise and what Santos called good old-fashioned human jury-rigging. All crew members were evacuated safely, though the process required 3 different types of environmental systems jury-rigged together. In the aftermath, as the rescued miners received medical attention, Valen observed the unlikely cooperation continuing. The Quantum Collective member was deep in discussion with a human doctor about probability-based triage methods. Unit 7 was analyzing the human emergency procedures, their initial dismissal replaced by genuine curiosity. Your species, Valen said to Santos, has an unusual effect on others. You make us forget our differences. Santos watched as a human medic and a Trilaxian healer worked together to treat a patient, neither bothered by their vastly different approaches to medicine. Maybe we just help everyone remember what's actually important. The shift was subtle but significant. The alien observers, originally there to evaluate and likely criticize human methods, were now actively engaged in improving them, offering their own expertise while learning from humanity's adaptability. A junior officer approached Santos with a datapad. Captain, we're receiving requests from 3 more consortium vessels. They want to participate in our training exercises. Santos exchanged glances with Valen, both recognizing the significance. The barriers weren't just coming down during emergencies. They were beginning to dissolve in everyday interactions. You know, Santos said, addressing the gathered aliens, Earth's history is full of moments where people from different cultures came together during crisis. We learned that helping each other is a universal language. Looks like that applies to different planets too. Valen's crystalline form sparkled with amusement. Perhaps that's why your species achieved so much in so little time. You never let differences become barriers. Oh, we let them become barriers plenty of times, Santos admitted. We just learned to build doors through them. As the Horizon prepared for its next mission, Valen realized that humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy might not be technological innovation or scientific discovery, but something far more fundamental, the ability to bring diverse species together in common cause, turning differences into strengths rather than divisions. The Storm's testament. The red alert klaxons aboard Station Prime shattered the usual serenity of consortium space. A massive solar storm, unprecedented in recorded history, was building in the Arcturus sector. In its path lay 3 major trade routes and 17 populated systems. The Consortium Council Chamber, usually a forum for measured debate, had become an emergency command center. High Chancellor Vexthor's mechanical form projected urgency as he addressed the assembled representatives. Our models predict catastrophic damage across multiple sectors, he announced. Standard evacuation protocols will take 48 hours. We have less than 30. Captain Santos, now serving as Earth's emergency response coordinator, studied the holographic display with growing concern. The storm's magnitude exceeded anything in human experience, but its pattern seemed familiar. This is like the Carrington event from Earth's history, she said, drawing surprised looks from the alien representatives. A massive solar storm that hit Earth in 1859. It was before we had modern technology, but it nearly destroyed what we did have. Valen, now serving as liaison between Earth's emergency services and the consortium, noticed something in the data. The human ships, they're moving toward the storm, not away from it. The chamber erupted in confusion. The Quantum Collective representative's probability field fluctuated wildly. Illogical. The human vessels lack the shielding to survive such conditions. Santos stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chaos. We can't stop the storm, but we can help evacuate the systems in its path. Our ships are already equipped with emergency protocols based on historical solar events. Your ships will be destroyed, Vexthor stated flatly. Maybe, Santos acknowledged. But we have to try. There are millions of lives at stake. What followed was unprecedented in consortium history. The human emergency fleet, joined by vessels from species they had helped train, deployed directly into the storm's path. They used a technique Santos called leapfrogging, ships taking turns advancing and sheltering behind each other's shields, extending their collective endurance. Valin watched from Station Prime as the rescue operation unfolded. The human ships, despite their technological limitations, demonstrated remarkable resilience. When their shields weakened, they rotated positions. When one ship's systems failed, others extended their protection. They were applying the same principles of mutual aid that had saved the Meridian, but on a massive scale. The mechanoid ships, with their superior shielding, found themselves adapting human tactics. The quantum collective vessels, typically conservative in their approach, began calculating probability vectors for risk-taking maneuvers. Even the Synphilic ships, usually aloof from physical concerns, joined the effort. This is chaos, Unit 7 observed, watching the operations. Yet, it functions. It's not chaos, Valin corrected. It's adaptation. Every ship compensating for others' weaknesses, maximizing their strengths, just as the humans taught us. The storm hit with devastating force. Several ships were lost, including both human and consortium vessels. But the combined fleet's efforts had evacuated over 90% of the threatened populations, far more than the most optimistic projections. In the aftermath, as the surviving ships limped back to safety, Santos received an unexpected message from High Chancellor Vexthor. Your species' methods remain unorthodox, the mechanoid leader stated, but today they proved their worth. The consortium formally requests Earth's assistance in establishing a permanent emergency response protocol. Santos looked exhausted but satisfied. We be honored, Chancellor. Though you should know, this success wasn't about human methods. It was about everyone working together, learning from each other. Valin, observing the exchange, realized she was witnessing a fundamental shift in galactic society. The humans hadn't just introduced new rescue protocols. They had demonstrated a new way of thinking about cooperation itself. Perhaps, she mused, her crystalline form reflecting the starlight. This is what true advancement looks like. Not measuring our differences in technology or age, but in our willingness to learn from each other. That's the thing about space, Santos replied, watching the combined fleet return. It's too big, too dangerous for any one species to handle alone. But together, she smiled, together we can face anything. Legacy of compassion. 20 years after the Great Storm, the Arcturus Emergency Response Academy celebrated its first graduation ceremony. The massive station, built through a collaboration of 17 species, housed the most advanced rescue training facility in known space. Valin, now serving as the Academy's director, stood at the podium before a graduating class that would have been unimaginable 2 decades ago. Mechanoid engineers sat beside quantum collective probability analysts. Nixi medical specialists shared quarters with human emergency responders. Even the traditionally isolationist Synthilics had sent students. When I first encountered humanity, she began, her crystalline form radiating with memories. I thought our rescue was an anomaly, a primitive species acting against all established protocols, risking everything to save strangers. What we didn't understand then was that we were witnessing the beginning of a transformation. Captain Santos, her hair now gray but her eyes as determined as ever, watched from the audience. She had retired from active duty but continued to teach at the Academy, sharing decades of emergency response experience with new generations. The Great Storm proved that no single species, no matter how advanced, could face the challenges of space alone. Valin continued. But more importantly, it showed us that we never had to. The humans didn't just teach us new rescue techniques. They reminded us of something we had forgotten in our rush to technological advancement. The ceremony was being broadcast across consortium space. In ships and stations throughout the galaxy, crews of mixed species worked together as naturally as breathing. The rigid hierarchies of the past had given way to a more fluid, adaptive approach to space exploration and emergency response. Unit 7, now Chief of Technical Operations, approached Santos after the ceremony. Our latest efficiency calculations show that mixed species crews outperform homogeneous teams by 43.2%, a most unexpected development. Santos smiled. Not unexpected to us. Humanity learned long ago that diversity isn't just about ethics. It's about survival. Different perspectives, different abilities, different ways of thinking. They all make us stronger. The Academy's Central Hall displayed artifacts from key moments in this transformation. The twisted hull fragment from a ship lost in the Great Storm, the first joint species rescue vessel, and in a prominent position, a piece of the Meridian's crystalline hull, preserved from that first encounter between humans and the Nexi. But the most significant changes weren't physical. The consortium's protocols, once rigid and hierarchical, had evolved to emphasize flexibility and cooperation. Emergency response was no longer seen as a burden or risk, but as a fundamental responsibility of all spacefaring species. The humans had a saying. Valen told her students during their final lecture. A rising tide lifts all boats. We didn't understand it at first. Many of our species don't even use boats, but its meaning has become the foundation of our new approach to space exploration. When we help others rise, we all rise together. The Academy's influence spread far beyond emergency response. Species that had once viewed each other with suspicion or disdain found common ground in shared missions. Trading partnerships evolved into cultural exchanges. Scientific cooperation led to breakthroughs that benefited all. As the ceremony concluded, a new distress signal reached the Academy. Without hesitation, graduates from 6 different species moved to respond, their differences forgotten in the face of their shared purpose. Santos watched them go, pride evident in her expression. "You know," she said to Valen, "when we first reached the stars, everyone thought we were too primitive to make a difference. Turns out, sometimes the most advanced technology isn't technology at all." Valen's crystalline form sparkled with agreement. It's the willingness to reach out, to help, to learn from each other. Humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy wasn't your ships or your techniques. It was showing us that true civilization isn't measured by how far we've come, but by how far we'll go to help others. The legacy of those first encounters, a stranded crystalline ship, a human vessel that stopped to help, a devastating storm that forced cooperation, had reshaped galactic society. The stars were still vast and dangerous, but they were no longer faced alone. Every ship that launched carried with it the promise that had become the cornerstone of interstellar civilization. No one would be left behind among the stars. As new generations of rescue workers headed out into space, they carried with them not just the technical skills they had learned, but something more fundamental. The understanding that the greatest strength in the universe wasn't found in advanced technology or ancient knowledge, but in the simple choice to help others, regardless of their origin or evolution. The humans had arrived in space as newcomers, seen as primitive by many. But they had brought with them something the galaxy desperately needed, a reminder that advancement without compassion was no advancement at all. And in doing so, they had helped create something greater than any single species could have achieved alone. A civilization where the response to any cry for help would always be, "We're coming."